Why do some people, despite being capable, quietly abandon the drive to succeed? Why do they shrink from ambition? Not out of fear of failure, but out of something much more elusive, something invisible. This is not about laziness. It is not about lack of opportunity. It is not even about fear of hard work. It's about the silent, psychological script written in early childhood, long before careers, finances, and adult responsibilities ever entered the picture. Many adults drift through life without a clear goal, avoiding leadership, avoiding challenge, and often sabotaging their own progress. On the surface, they appear indifferent, but beneath that indifference lies a deeper fracture, an emotional blueprint formed in the mind of an invisible child. A child who wasn't seen, not truly. A child who learned that visibility was dangerous, that expression was unwelcome, and that needs were burdens to others. That child grows up, and when they do, they wear invisibility like a second skin. In adulthood, this often manifests not as overt dysfunction, but as quiet stagnation, a passive approach to life, a low ceiling of possibility they never attempt to shatter. They won't chase dreams because they never learned to believe their desires mattered. This is not just personal, it's systemic. The world rewards visibility, assertiveness, and presence. So what happens when someone has been psychologically conditioned to be invisible? Let's talk about the origin. In early childhood, a developing psyche seeks two primary psychological nutrients: attachment and attunement. Attachment gives a sense of safety. Attunement gives a sense of being understood. When one or both are chronically unavailable, the child adapts. They suppress emotions. They become hyper-aware of others' moods. They learn to disappear as a survival strategy. And this disappearance is not dramatic. It's silent. It's the child who never asks for help, the child who stops trying to win attention, the one who internalizes the message, "You don't matter unless you're useful or quiet." So when that child grows into an adult, what does success look like to them? It often doesn't look like anything, because the framework required to desire success, to pursue it without guilt, without fear, without shame, was never built. Their ambition was never allowed to take root because desire itself was never validated. As adults, they may say things like, "I'm not competitive," or "I just want a simple life," or "I don't care about success." But these are not always expressions of peace. Sometimes they are self-protective narratives, rationalizations for a deeper wound. Here's the conflict. Success requires visibility. It requires self-belief. It requires the capacity to take up space and to claim worth. But the invisible child never learned how. Their internal system associates visibility with danger, attention with shame, and ambition with emotional abandonment. So when life demands these traits, their internal system pulls the brakes. Now layer this onto the culture of adulthood, where performance, productivity, and personal branding are the currencies of value, and the result is a chronic mismatch. The invisible child, now an adult, enters a workforce that rewards self-promotion, confidence, and assertive ambition, yet internally, they are wired for withdrawal. They may perform just well enough to stay afloat, but the pursuit of growth, of mastery, of excellence, it feels foreign, risky, threatening, not because they don't want it, but because somewhere deep in their unconscious, they believe they don't deserve it, or worse, that it will cost them emotional safety. This is the psychological trap. The adult functions but does not thrive. They rationalize their stagnation. They tell themselves that ambition is superficial or greedy, but in truth, it is the shadow of a childhood survival strategy dictating their present. To be clear, this is not about blame. It is about awareness. Until the invisible child within is acknowledged, the adult remains stuck in patterns that seem logical but are fundamentally fear-based. And here's the paradox. The invisible child craves recognition but fears it. They crave success but distrusts it. They want to be seen, but only in ways that don't expose them to the pain of early rejection. So what do? They disappear in plain sight. They keep their heads down. They avoid competition. They abandon their goals before starting, and slowly they convince themselves they never had any. This is not failure. This is adaptation. But adaptation must eventually give way to transformation if growth is ever to occur. The first step is not setting goals. It's not motivation or discipline. It's understanding the invisible framework, how childhood invisibility became adult limitation. In the next segment, we'll go deeper. We'll uncover how ambition itself becomes distorted in the psyche of the invisible child, and how adult success can trigger the very same emotional threats once linked to childhood rejection. Because if we don't understand what's stopping us, we'll keep mistaking survival for stability and stagnation for peace.
You can't pursue what you believe you're not allowed to want. That's the silent war beneath the surface. Desire that feels unsafe, almost shameful. And for many adults who seem apathetic toward success, this is the buried truth. Their relationship with wanting itself is fractured. It's not that they lack drive. It's that drive was once punished, dismissed, misinterpreted. For the invisible child, early emotional environments taught a dangerous lesson. Wanting leads to rejection. Wanting leads to disappointment. Wanting makes you vulnerable. So they adapted. They stopped wanting openly. They killed desire at the root. As adults, this manifests in subtle ways. They don't set long-term goals, not because they're careless, but because hope feels like a trap. They downplay achievements. They understate ambition. They say, "I'm fine where I am," even when they aren't. Because naming desire feels like handing the world a weapon to use against them. This isn't a conscious decision. It's a neuropsychological adaptation. The nervous system, conditioned by repeated emotional neglect or invalidation, learned to equate desire with threat. Every instance in childhood where expressing a want led to being ignored, ridiculed, or emotionally abandoned created a patterned association: desire equals danger. In neurodevelopmental terms, this becomes a survival response. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and long-term vision, is bypassed in favor of limbic-driven avoidance. The moment a desire emerges, whether it's to speak up, take a risk, or aim higher, the nervous system anticipates loss, so it shuts it down before it ever reaches the surface. This internal shutdown becomes habitual. Wanting is no longer a choice, it becomes a burden, a trigger, something to avoid. And in a culture that celebrates ambition and forward motion, this creates inner dissonance. On the outside, everyone else seems to be moving, building, striving. On the inside, there's a quiet retreat. Not due to lack of motivation, but because ambition threatens the fragile safety structure built on emotional invisibility. There's also a hidden layer of shame. If you've spent your formative years believing that your wants are excessive, irrational, or selfish, you begin to resent your own desire. You see it as weakness, as something to apologize for. Over time, this shame calcifies into identity. "I'm just not ambitious," they'll say. But that's not identity, that's injury. This distinction matters because if we believe we were born without desire, we'll never reclaim it. But if we see that desire was shamed out of us, we open the door to healing. There's also the illusion of contentment. Many adults who operate from this place of avoidance convince themselves they're at peace. But peace is not the absence of longing. Real peace allows for desire without anxiety, without guilt, without fear. When desire feels unsafe, the mind creates narratives to justify its absence. Success changes people. I don't need more. I'm not like those ambitious types. But these aren't philosophies, they're armor. And the tragedy is that they often go unchallenged, because the person believes these thoughts are theirs when in fact they're echoes of emotional survival patterns laid down decades earlier. So, what happens to potential in this scenario? It shrinks, quietly, not through failure, but through avoidance, not through rebellion, but through internal withdrawal. The person never tests their limits, never confronts the discomfort of growth, and therefore never learns that they could survive it. They remain safe, but at the cost of expansion. And there's a paradox. Wanting requires risk, but without wanting, life becomes inert. Growth demands the willingness to feel vulnerable. But the invisible child, now an adult, was taught that vulnerability was a mistake. So they choose the lesser pain, the known pain, the pain of stagnation. But even that choice isn't free. Over time, it corrodes self-trust. If you never act on your own desires, you stop believing in their validity. You become alienated from your inner world, detached, apathetic. You stop hearing the voice that once whispered, "More is possible." This is how ambition dies, not in fire, but in silence. It is smothered by a nervous system that learned to distrust longing. It is buried beneath narratives that defend the status quo, even when that status is suffocating. So the path forward isn't motivation, it isn't discipline, it's reattunement. It's beginning to see desire not as threat, but as signal, as truth, as evidence of life. Because the goal isn't to chase ambition for ambition's sake, it's to repair the relationship with the part of you that once wanted freely and paid the price. In the next part, we'll explore how the fear of rejection cements this entire system, how even small moments of success can trigger internal sabotage, not because success is unwanted, but because the invisible child still fears what it might cost.
There's a moment, brief, almost imperceptible, when progress triggers panic. When success, instead of feeling like relief, feels like exposure. For some, this is the psychological wall they never push past, and they don't understand why. Everything is going well, yet something inside them recoils. This is not fear of failure. It's fear of rejection that masquerades as self-sabotage. And it is deeply tied to the unprocessed blueprint of emotional abandonment. The invisible child learned early that visibility, being noticed, being expressive, being bold, was followed by pain, not always through dramatic punishment, often through something quieter but more corrosive: disinterest, dismissal, emotional coldness. Moments when showing effort was met with silence. When doing well didn't bring connection but distance, or worse, pressure to perform without support. So they learned, don't stand out, don't excel, don't want too much. And if you must succeed, make sure it's in a way that keeps you safe from others' reactions. Keep it small, keep it quiet, keep it forgettable.
This conditioning doesn't vanish in adulthood. It evolves. In the adult world, success often requires initiative, courage, and visibility. It demands being seen, heard, acknowledged. But when visibility has been coded as a threat, success becomes unsafe. The nervous system responds not with excitement, but with resistance. That resistance looks like procrastination, imposter syndrome, or perfectionism. But underneath is one core fear. If I succeed, I will be rejected. This fear isn't always rational, but it's felt. It bypasses logic and goes straight to the body. Heart rate increases, focus disappears. The drive that once felt clear suddenly dissolves. And the adult, unaware of the link, blames their lack of consistency, discipline, or ambition. They call it laziness, but it's self-protection. This is the rejection blueprint, a subconscious program that says the more you achieve, the more at risk you are of disconnection. Because in the past, love was never unconditional. Approval was transactional. Affection came with strings. So now, even minor achievements can create discomfort. Praise feels suspicious. Opportunities feel burdensome, not because they are, but because they resemble situations that once led to emotional harm. And so the cycle continues. The adult avoids stretching beyond what feels safe. They remain competent, but not excellent. Engaged, but not committed. Capable, but not expansive. And here's the tragedy. They have the talent, the intelligence, the creativity. But every time they begin to use it fully, their inner alarm system goes off. It tells them, you're going too far. You're making yourself a target. They'll expect too much from you now. They'll leave. This is not delusion, it's pattern recognition. A system trying to protect itself from a threat it doesn't realize is no longer real. But the body doesn't know time. What felt unsafe at age 5 still feels unsafe at 35, unless it's brought into conscious awareness. That's the key. This isn't about pushing harder. It's about becoming aware of the mechanism hijacking your present. So ask the difficult questions. What does success remind you of? Who did you lose when you first started doing well? When did ambition become the beginning of distance? These aren't just reflections, they're tools. Because until the blueprint is rewritten, the past will dictate the limits of the future. And here's where most advice fails. It tells you to just believe in yourself, just take action, just break through. But if your body equates action with danger, belief won't stick. You'll take 2 steps forward and 3 back, not out of weakness, because your invisible child within you still believes rejection is inevitable. Healing means showing that child something new, that effort doesn't have to lead to abandonment, that doing well isn't a threat, that people can celebrate you without conditions, that love doesn't disappear when you rise. But that proof can't come from others first. It must come from you. You have to be the first to remain, the first to witness your own progress without turning away, the first to offer yourself what no one did before: consistency, safety, acceptance. Until then, success will always feel like a trap. Not because it is, but because your nervous system was trained to expect loss when good things arrive. This is the invisible tension behind many underachieving adults. Not a lack of skill, but a lack of internal permission to use it fully. In the final part, we'll explore how to rebuild that permission, not through force, but through reconnection. Because when the invisible child is no longer afraid of being seen, ambition is no longer exile, it's homecoming.
Ambition is not noise.
It is not arrogance, it is not a cry for validation. At its core, true ambition is the natural movement of a self that finally feels safe to exist. But when that self was denied for years, dismissed, ignored, or unseen, ambition becomes a foreign language. The invisible child grows into an adult who associates growth with danger, success with loneliness, and visibility with abandonment. And so they live quietly, competently, invisibly, until the ache of stagnation becomes unbearable. The question is not, how do I get motivated? The real question is, can I allow myself to exist without apology? Because ambition, in its healthy form, begins where shame ends. It begins when the self is no longer something to hide, suppress, or amputate in exchange for belonging. This is not a mindset shift. It's a nervous system shift. It requires recognizing, moment by moment, that the threats of childhood are not the threats of adulthood. That the people who withheld love are no longer the ones holding the pen. That you are the one writing the script now. But to do that, you must bring the invisible child into the light. Not to fix them, not to punish them, but to tell them what they never heard. You are safe. You matter. You don't have to disappear to be loved. When those messages finally land, deep in the body, not just the mind, something changes. The defensive freeze loosens. The emotional fog begins to lift. The voice of hesitation grows quieter. And slowly, permission returns. Permission to want, to reach, to try, to fail, to try again. Healing does not make the past disappear. It makes the present no longer beholden to it. And so the adult reclaims what the child abandoned, the right to take up space, not to prove anything, not to impress anyone, but because life is not meant to be navigated from the shadows. When you begin to move from that place, not fear, not compensation, but self-ownership, ambition transforms. It's no longer about achieving to escape yourself. It's about expanding because you are finally with yourself. Even failure looks different from here. It doesn't destroy you, it educates you. You no longer collapse when things don't go as planned, because you are no longer living to earn permission to exist. You already gave yourself that. And as you do, something remarkable happens. The internal war quiets. The avoidance softens. The shame loses its grip. You're no longer the adult pretending not to care. You are the adult who finally understands why you once had to. And from that understanding emerges strength, not the brittle strength of perfectionism, but the grounded strength of presence, of someone who no longer sees ambition as betrayal, but as an act of alignment, a return to self. The invisible child doesn't vanish. They don't need to. They grow. They learn to trust the adult version of you. They stop hiding when you speak, act, risk, lead. They stop bracing for rejection that never comes. And eventually, they look around and they see that they're no longer alone. Because ambition, when rooted in healing, is not a performance. It's a reunion. So if you find yourself afraid to want more, afraid to try, afraid to be seen, pause. Listen. The child within you is not broken. They're just waiting for safety, for truth, for you. And once they are found, you'll discover this. The ambition you thought you lacked was never missing. It was just waiting for permission to come home.